Hello YouTube, welcome to another Season 6 Patch 6.11 guide. Today we are covering Taric, the Shield of Valoran.
Let me make myself crystal clear.
He's a champion with a relatively strong kit, although he's not found in the LCS too often. He can be found in the EU LCS sparingly, but not very much. Despite that fact, he's a champion that can bring a lot to his teams, and he's especially strong when he is against a high AD composition. So let's explore support Taric's strengths and weaknesses. Taric has a really strong lane phase, and he can play pretty aggressively and not really be punished too hard for it. The cooldown on his stun isn't too long, and he's simply able to back off and heal after he goes and trades some damage. When he is level 6, he's simply able to use his ultimate to become invulnerable and deal a bunch of damage that way. He's got pretty amazing peel since he is able to tether himself to his allies. Once he is bound, even if he's not directly next to his teammate, he can still heal his ally and stun people from his ally if they do get too close to him. His heal isn't too strong, but it does have an AoE radius. The radius also extends on whoever he's binded to, so it can have a pretty decent range. In teamfights, if you can get this AoE heal on multiple people, it can completely change the way the teamfight turns out. I'd argue the best part about Taric is his ability to stun multiple targets. Old school Taric was a point and click stunner, but this Taric, he is technically able to stun an entire team in the line of his stun. The ally he's binded to shoots the stun out as well, so in theory he can even stun an entire team even if they are separated. Taric also brings insane teamfight utility to his team. He's able to keep dishing out shields, heals, and bonus armor for his team, and of course those stuns. He can then use his ultimate to make his team invulnerable for 2.5 seconds. If he's able to time it correctly, he can even stop basically full fiddle ultimates and things of the sort. Finally, he's super tanky and difficult to kill. He's your typical tanky support champion that builds stuff like a Frozen Heart. With Bastion, he and the target he's linked with get an extra 20% armor. Taric is a champion that likes to get a lot of armor, so this can equate to a shitload of armor. This is one of the main reasons Taric is such a great pick against a heavy AD team. Now, although Taric is a relatively strong support champion, there still are a bunch of cons. The first one, like most melee support champions have to deal with, is the fact that they can be easily poked. Some champions in particular can really ruin your day if they know how to take advantage of this. The two biggest ones that come to mind are Zyra and Karma. They do such an insane amount of poke damage that you really have to kind of take it as Taric. You don't have a shield like Braum or anything, you don't really have a choice, unless you can dodge, of course. Your heal is not that strong, and there's no way, honestly, that you can deal with that amount of poke. The next problem is Taric also lacks mobility. This is a pretty big issue because he can't really dodge that poke as easy as, some other support champions. He also can't roam around too quickly, so, he usually finds himself in the bot lane supporting his champion as much as possible. Taric also really struggles against burst teams. Taric is incredibly beefy in sustained fights, but his ultimate can be bypassed altogether by champions that can 100 to 0 him. His ultimate has a 2.5 second delay before it goes off, and some champions can delete him relatively easy in that time frame. When you are against those champions, it is not a good idea to pick Taric. Lastly, Taric can be countered by high AP teams. Due to how his Bastion works, he's a champion that scales with his armor. When he's against those high AP comps, he's not really that effective considering he can't build that armor to get his Bastion really strong. All in all, Taric is a relatively strong champion, but he does excel against those high AD teams that don't have a ton of burst, more of the sustained damage type of AD champions. For our Masteries, we go 18 Cunning, 12 Resolve, grabbing Windspeaker's Blessing as our Keystone Mastery. With this Keystone Mastery, our heals and shields become much more potent. This is a great mastery page, especially if we are against one of those high poke-based enemy pairs on the bot lane and we need that extra sustain. With this mastery page, we also get the extra 5% cooldown reduction just so we can use our abilities a little bit more often. Another great option is going for Bond of Stone, which is 18 Resolve. This tree makes you just a little bit more tankier, although your heals are not as strong. If you want to be just a little bit tankier in the front line, then you'll want to go for Bond of Stone, but generally I like Windspeaker's Blessing myself. I like having the much stronger heals and shields. For our rune page, we go full out tankiness. We grab 9 greater marks of armor, 9 greater seals of health, 9 greater glyphs of magic resist, and 3 greater quintessences of armor as well. In total, we get 21 armor, 72 health, and 12 magic resist. This gives Taric an incredible amount of tanky stats, and he is a complete bot lane bully. He can just be a frontliner soaking up all sorts of damage for his AD carry so he can farm away. He's still weak, of course, against those AP, pokey type of champions like Zyra and Karma, but this makes him able to deal with that a little bit more than usual. For our summoners on support Taric, we of course go for Flash Exhaust. Flash is of course that summoner spell that's so strong there's nothing really viable to take over it, so, always take Flash. Since Taric does lack so much mobility, Flash can really be your only form of escape if you are in a bad situation. You of course can use this with your Dazzle to completely catch your enemies by surprise. Exhaust is our second summoner. If you know that your AD carry knows how to trade effectively, Exhaust is usually the best option over Ignite. The movement speed reduction that it also provides is relatively nice, considering it can be easier to land your stun on that target. Exhaust typically proves to be a more reliable summoner spell than Ignite, especially when you move over to the team fighting phase in the later part of the game. This summoner excels most when you are against bursty champions like Zed or Talon. You'll always want to use this for that 40% damage reduction to help your AD carry survive getting 100 to 0'd. Ignite is probably the second best option for your second summoner. This is a great summoner in situations where you know you're going to have a really easy lane phase. This summoner can really start your AD carry snowballing for the added damage that it does provide. The grievous wounds that Ignite inflicts can also be invaluable for winning trades or team fights in the game as well. If you are against champions like Soraka, Dr. Mundo, and Volibear, you may want to consider taking that Ignite. If you are against a bunch of these healing champions, having just the Ignite on your mid laner might not be enough, and you may want to consider taking it yourself. Other than that, in all other scenarios, you'll want to take Exhaust, especially if you are against those high burst assassin champions like Zed and Talon. Now we're going to look at each of his abilities, starting with his passive, which is called Bravado. This is an innate ability that activates when you use any of your abilities. Knowing how to take advantage of this passive is what separates good and bad Tarics. The first reason Bravado is so strong is its ability to add a bunch of damage in trades and team fights. When you're trading, make sure you use one ability, auto attack 2 times, and then use another ability, and follow it up with more auto attacks. When you're doing this, Bravado can actually add a ton of damage and make you do a decent amount of damage yourself. The other reason it's so important is the cooldown that Bravado will bring to your abilities every time you land one of these empowered auto attacks. You get a bunch of attack speed on these abilities, and it's so easy to get them off that there's no reason not to do it. The fact that you do lower your cooldown means you can get off multiple stuns in teamfights if you are using this effectively. An example of using this effectively would be using your W, auto-attacking 2 times, using your E, auto-attacking 2 times, using your Q, auto-attacking 2 times again, etc. This will add a bunch of damage considering you do get attack speed and it does scale off of your armor, so do it. The fact that you do lower your cooldowns is just further reason to take full advantage of your passive. Taric's Q is his heal, and it's called Starlight's Touch. This is your primary form of sustain in lane and team fights. As the ability states, every 15 seconds you will gain another charge up to a cap of 3 charges. You can then activate this ability to consume all of the charges you do have on the skill. Now in the lane, you'll generally want to wait until you have 3 charges before healing yourself and your carry. Now the mana cost does remain the same despite the amount of charges you are consuming, so to be as mana efficient as possible, you will want to of course use it when you have maximum charges. Now if you were a pre-rework Taric player, you want to remember that this is an AoE heal skill now. Make sure you communicate with your team so they do know when you are going in for a heal. This can be great in siege comps if you are grouping with your whole team and sustaining them that way so they don't ever have to back. They can keep pressure on towers. Taric's W, which is called Bastion, is the bread and butter of his kit. When you are bound to an ally, it gives you and that ally a whopping 20% of Taric's armor, and that can be a lot of armor, especially if you're against a lot of AD champions. This armor remains as long as you're bound and within range of that target you have bound to. You can bind to your AD carry to make him a little less squishy, but in teamfights he's still very vulnerable to damage and he can still be 100 to 0'd if he doesn't have your ultimate on. You can also use this to bind to a tank so he just becomes more tanky. When you do cast this ability, you and your ally do get a shield. During the lane phase, you'll want to be constantly refreshing this shield whenever you can, and especially when you do go in for trades or you're getting poked. The ability's second effect makes your allies replicate all of the spells you cast. This basically means you get double the area of your heals and stuns, which can make a huge difference in teamfights. To play Taric to his full potential, you're going to have to be switching your Bastion around on your allies. You can put your Bastion on champions that are good at chasing opponents if you do want to land a stun on an enemy very, very far away. Something like Vi can close a large gap on a target, and then you can shoot your Dazzle from them, providing extra stuns. This is by far one of Taric's best abilities, and is what makes him a rather unique champion. Taric's last ability is his E, and it's called Dazzle. This is a short range but potent stun that lasts up to 1.5 seconds at max level. This is the skill you'll be using the most when you are going aggressive during the lane phase. It's really strong when you are bound to somebody because it doubles the area effect you can hit with your stun. Since you are sitting bot lane with your AD carry, you'll always have Bastion on, and you and your AD carry will be shooting out stuns. Although the damage does not stack, if your AD carry and you can position yourselves correctly, you can hit both enemy laners with it, even if they are spread out. The one thing you have to account for though is the charge up time when you are going in for trades. It's also worth noting that this ability does reset your auto attack timer as well. If you're in a long drawn out fight, you can use this right after an auto attack, so you're able to auto attack right after really quickly. This is great because in turn it will immediately lower the cooldown of your other abilities with your passive. Taric's ultimate ability, Cosmic Radiance, grants him and his nearby allies invulnerability. When used correctly, this can be a huge game changer. This ability, just by itself, has the potential to win games, assuming your team actually knows how to follow up. Cosmic Radiance can be used in a couple different ways, either to pull off crazy offensive plays or just to save your teammates from certain death. However, knowing when exactly to use your ultimate can be a pretty difficult task. Using your ultimate at the wrong time could possibly lose your team the next team fight or even the game. There are a couple different reasons you'll want to use your ultimate, the first one being to hard engage trading in your lane. This 2.5 second invulnerability also allows you to tower dive to secure kills. You can use this ultimate if your team has already started fighting to negate large portions of the enemy team's damage. If you see a fiddle coming in for an ultimate, you can start channeling your ultimate so it will negate all of that damage, giving your team a huge advantage. All in all, this is a really strong ultimate, but it can be sometimes hard to predict when the damage will be incoming. With all the abilities covered, we're going to look at Taric's ability order, and it of course starts with his ultimate, Cosmic Radiance. You take it at 6, 11, and 16. Since his stun duration now scales with levels, we have to max his stun first, his E, and it's called Dazzle. We take it at 1, 4, 5, 7, and 9. Due to all the armor Bastion provides, we then max that one second. We take it at 2, 8, 10, 12, and 13. Although heals and sustains are rather nice to have, we still have to max his heal, which is Starlight's Touch, last. We take it at 3, 14, 15, 17, and finally 18. Our item build starts with a Relic Shield, some health potions, and a Warding Totem. The Relic Shield is great on Taric considering it does have some gold generation and 75 health. Since he is a melee champion, the Execute, which provides some lane sustain and some more gold generation, is fantastic on him. For our first buys, we upgrade our Relic Shield into a Tarragon's Brace, add a Sightstone, Boots of Swiftness, and a Sweeping Lens. When we do our first back, if we have at least 800 gold, we want to make sure that we pick up the Sightstone so we have vision on the river. If we don't have that 800 gold when we back for the first time, we'll want to get the Tarragon's Brace, followed by the Boots of Swiftness. The first core item in the build is the Eye of the Equinox. It's great because it still has that Execute on minions, it adds 500 health, 100% base health regeneration, and 2 gold generation. Since Taric is a very immobile champion, we then add Boots of Swiftness so we're able to roam around the map much more quickly. We then follow that up with a Locket of the Iron Solari. This is a support item I take on every single support champion. We get 10 CDR, 400 health, 100% base health regeneration, and 20 magic resist. It also provides a passive aura which gives 15 magic resist and an amazing active shield. When activated, it gives all champions near you a shield that lasts for 2 seconds. This is great for adding a little bit of tankiness on those squishy champions that are on your team. Finally, we add a Frozen Heart to the build. It gives 90 armor, which scales really well with Bastion on Taric. It gives 20 CDR as well, and 400 mana. The best part of the item, however, is the 15% reduced attack speed on any champions that are near Taric. This is always a great item, but it's especially effective when you are against a lot of auto attack based champions. To then finish off our cooldown reduction cap, we grab a Mikhail's Crucible. It also gives some much needed magic resist and 150% base mana regeneration. The best part of the item again is its passive effect. When activated, this item removes all stuns, roots, taunts, fears, silences, and slows on an allied champion and heals them for 150 plus 10% of the target's maximum health. This is a great utility item and can get your AD carry out of all sorts of sticky situations. Finally, we finish the build with yet more armor, and we grab a Randuin's Omen. This item gives 60 armor, 500 health, and a unique passive which slows attack speed of any attackers by an extra 15%. Since Taric is a melee fighter and he will be near all the enemy champions, it also has an incredible active. When you activate this ability, you shoot out a 500 range AoE which slows all enemy units by 35% for 4 seconds. Our first item alternative is Face of the Mountain. This item is great for the shield it does provide, however it does not give the wards the Sightstone provides. This means you would have to waste a second slot to get the Sightstone, which I am not a fan of. I do prefer instead getting Eye of the Equinox, so I get both in one item. Next is Zeke's Herald, and I would only get this item if I do have an AD carry that I am duoing with. This item does require good coordination with your AD carry, and the average AD carry you're pubbing with doesn't really have that coordination, so only take it if you are duoing. Next, if you are looking just to get a high health pool, you can simply take a Warmogs. This item doesn't provide any magic resist or armor, however it gives the most health you can get in one single item. Another great item if you do want to add some more magic resist is a Spirit Visage. It's a great item for all the base stats it does provide, and the 25% extra heal you receive on top of yourself. Next is Dead Man's Plate. It's pretty much just a good pickup if you do wish to roam a little bit faster. Simply, you'll just pick up this item if you know that you're going to have to roam around the map a lot more than usual. Lastly, in those situations where you're against a full AD team, which is where Taric shines the most, you could get a Thorn Mail. You'll be incredibly hard to take down against all those AD champions, and you will return some of their own damage against them. Now we're going to look at a couple of the synergies that work well with Taric. First up is Jhin, an AD carry whose kit works very well with Taric's. The slow on Jhin's captive audience makes it very easy for Taric to follow up with a stun. Jhin can then use his Deadly Flourish to chain his CC with Taric. Taric's stun can also hold people in place for Jhin's ultimate, Curtain Call. With all these synergies, Taric and Jhin can make a very scary bot lane combination. Another really strong combination with Taric is Callista. Her ultimate, Fate's Call, is an insane initiation tool that can drop Taric right in the middle of an enemy team where he does best. The knock-up time of Fate's Call, even at its lowest rank, gives Taric plenty of time to charge up his stun and hit those enemies he just knocked up. One last really strong combination with Taric is Ezreal. Taric's able to hold people in place so Ezreal can land all of his skill shots. Taric can even use his W on Ezreal so he can jump forward and he can stun people from the forward positioned Ezreal. This is a great combination and can land kills from a far away distance.
And that's it for Taric. You guys are probably wondering how to refresh. He's actually gone to play some league, so I'm going to finish off the guide. So thank you for coming to eGaming TV's YouTube channel to watch Taric. You can follow us at egaming_TV on Twitter. Twitter is where we do our monthly skins giveaway. And you can also check out our website at egamingtv.com. Now, before we leave, I just want to quickly mention we do have a podcast about e-gaming called Killed Secured. You could actually check out the video version on our channel here, but you can just find it on your Stitcher or iTunes. Yeah, so that's about it. So thanks again for coming to Taric Guide. Have fun, and I think he said stay classy, San Diego. We're not even in the U.S., so stay classy, Toronto.